There were two brothers that were raised absolutely inseparable. Everything they did was side by side, and every choice they made was made together. And these two were raised up on a farm as to where they loved it so much that their entire goal and dream was to eventually be able to take over their parents' farm. And that day had come as to where they started to be able to run their parents' farm, and it was booming. It had become so successful. They were selling twice the product, they were raising twice the cattle, and the neighbors and everybody else were just so elated to see these boys and how well they worked together. Well, all of a sudden, one day had come as to where they were trying to bring these cattle into this certain area of this land, and something was happening with the fence posts, or something was going on as to where it caused for them to have one of their very first disagreements. And they couldn't decide on what was happening. And unfortunately, they ended up losing half of the cattle that year. And they both ended up looking at one another and said, "This is your fault. Like, I can't believe you wouldn't decide with me, or I can't believe you didn't, have the same idea that I did. This has never happened." And this little moment in time ended up separating these two beyond what any of the people in the village could have ever imagined. The one brother got so elated and so distraught that he sold his half of the farm and ended up buying land across a creek bed and said, "You know what? I don't want anything to do with you. I'm going to raise a better farm, and I'm going to make all the right decisions and choices. And you can just go off and let your cattle just die the way you did." And his brother was just, "Whoa, can't believe this is happening." So one day, as the farmer's about to go into town to be able to run some errands, this carpenter or this gentleman shows up and says, "Hey, I'm looking for some work. Do you have anything I could do, or is there anything I could help out with?" And the farmer says, "You know what? You see all that wood over there?" He says, "I want you to take that wood and I want you to build a fence across my lot or my property so high and so wide as to where my brother can't look over and see what I'm doing, and he can't look over, and I want him to have nothing to do with this farm, not even to be able to see it anymore." And the carpenter says, "Okay, sir, I can do that." And he says, "I'm going to be back from running my errands, and I expect to see a good portion of this built." He says, "Okay, sir." So the farmer goes off into town, and the next thing you know, he shows back up, and he gets out of his car, and he's just fuming, and he's looking like, what in the world? He's watching this carpenter, and in his head, he sees not a fence, or not anything that he had wanted, and he's just, "Are you kidding me? What the heck are you doing?" As he notices that this carpenter is finishing a bridge that he's building across the creek that separated him and his brother. And the next thing you know, his brother is walking across the field and comes across that bridge, and all at once gives his brother one of the biggest hugs ever. And he looks at his brother and he says, "I can't believe that you would go to the extent to build a bridge for us to combine our lands." He said, "That is the greatest thing. I was so petty and I was so wrong, and I didn't mean to be able to say that. I didn't mean for this to come to this point." And all at once, the two brothers realized how petty and stupid this fighting was, and how much of a divide it caused in a way as to where, they took it to that extent. How many times in our own lives do we let little things fester or build, or that we just hold on to in a way that ends up destroying some of our closest relationships, or that ends up destroying some of the people that we have, or the people that are the closest to us, where we end up hurting them for no reason other than we were too prideful to be able to admit that we were wrong, or to be able to just realize that it didn't really matter. And if we stuck together side by side, we'd be able to figure these things out and work through it in a healthy enough way as to where it doesn't have to come between us or divide us. That choice to be able to let these little things fester, or to hold on to those grudges, or to hold on to those little things, is up to each and every one of us.